Most of us say we face pressure every day, no matter what we do. In most marriages, both the husband and the wife work. And it seems to be especially true before a couple has children. And after a child is born, if one is usually to stay home, most of the time it's the wife, doesn't have to be. No matter which situation you find yourself in, though, there is daily pressure. There's pressure at work and pressure as a stay-at-home parent. In and of itself, this pressure isn't necessarily bad, although it can be. We had children. Nancy stayed home until they were in school, and then she worked part-time. I think it took me a while to realize how much stress that she experienced with taking care of first one and then two children. It was a job that she loved, but there were a lot of things to get done every single day. Once she went to work, more pressure came as she was learning a career and at the same time giving it her best, her very best, at home. It's obvious to most people that I really love my work. In fact, I love it so much I seldom think about it as work. Counseling with people and helping them see God's plan for their life and their marriage, it's so rewarding. I love it. I love all I do with Awesome Marriage. I love telling people across the globe in many different ways about God's incredible plan for marriage. Yet there's pressure and there's stress. Every couple I counsel is different. Some are more challenging than others. I love writing, but there are always deadlines. Every time we record a new podcast, I still get butterflies in my stomach. Same is true when I speak at events. My point is that no matter how much we love our work, there's still going to be some pressures. And if we don't like our work, then the pressures are magnified. Do you think you have a good idea of the pressures your spouse faces every day? Do you understand the stress that he or she is under? I think that far too often we keep these areas of our lives separate. We don't really engage with each other about what goes on each day at work in any depth. For the stay-at-home parent, it may be obvious that there is stress, but do we take the time to understand what they go through each day? Maybe we are even somewhat envious that they get to stay at home while we have to face the world every day. Tom and Ann. Tom began working right out of college for a startup company. The company was family-owned. Tom was their first outside hire. Over the next 15 years, the company experienced an incredible, consistent pattern of growth. And with the growth, then there came new opportunities for Tom. He knew the company inside and out, and now he was in an executive position, had a great salary. Tom and Ann dreamed for years of building their own home on a piece of land. It was a piece of land that Ann's grandparents had left her in her will. Now seemed like the perfect time for them to take that step. Ann knew the architect and the builder she wanted to use, and Tom, he was 100% on board. Their oldest child will be starting school shortly after they made the move. Everything was fitting together. It couldn't be better. Tom and Ann had been living in their new home for about 8 months when Tom began to hear rumblings around the office. The company's growth and their sound financial base might have attracted a potential buyer. The rumor was that a big corporation saw Tom's company as an asset to their growing portfolio. Tom had no idea what that might mean for him. Would this new company keep all of the employees? More importantly, would they keep him? What would his position be? What about his salary? There were many more questions than Tom had answers for. That evening, when Tom went home, Ann asked him how his day was. And Tom said, "Fine." He made the decision to keep all of his fears to himself. He never gave Ann the opportunity to share in the pressures that he was feeling. It was 2 months before the impending sale of Tom's company was public. About that time, they came to see me for counseling. As I sat down on my couch in my office, Tom looked tired. He looked weary. Ann, she was angry. Most of Tom's fears were coming true, and he waited until near the end before he told Ann. To some degree, Ann was angry at Tom's company, But most of her anger was at Tom for leaving her on the outside as things developed. And since something was wrong at least a month before the news was public. But when she asked Tom, he repeatedly said it was nothing. Tom was in a mess. His marriage was in a mess. And he still was not sure if he had a job. I don't know what pressures Adam and Eve faced early in the Garden of Eden. I just think remembering the names Adam gave to all the animals was a really big task. What I do know is that by God spending time with them each day, he showed us a model for relationships. We need to take time to share the pressures and stresses of life with each other and with God. It was impossible for Adam and Eve to hide things from each other. And the same is true for each of us today. What if Tom had shared with Ann from the day when he first heard the rumors? Would the 2 months have been different? Ann thought so. Beneath her anger, she really was sad. She was sad that she had not been able to walk through such a stressful time with Tom. She felt robbed of the opportunity that she would have embraced to walk beside her husband through something that challenging. So now it's your turn. Will you be Adam and Eve? Or will you be Tom and Ann? I want to choose to be Adam and Eve.